What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we had the pleasure of talking with the public address announcer for the Albany Firewolves, Mike Falvo. Mike, thanks for jumping on with us. How's it going?
It's going, man. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. So I asked this same question to start off every interview we've done. We're kind of trying to expand the lacrosse coverage, trying to do more like the NFL does, bring somebody on that is the next opponent for the Buffalo Bandits. So that's why we got you on for the Firewolves. So here's the question. One word to describe the Albany Firewolves season so far.
From our point of view, especially from the fans' point of view, I can say, I don't want to use the word disappointing because the guys, they go out and they play hard every single game. I think, a lot of us were expecting, the opposite of where we are now. A lot of us were expecting, maybe a return to the NLL finals. And that could possibly still happen. It's the opportunity is still there. It's just up to us to quote unquote, grab the bull by the horns and go for it, really.
So last year, this team kind of took the league by storm, and I don't think anyone expected them to make the playoffs, let alone a finals run. And it seemed like that was even well ahead of their own plans and their own timelines of their rebuild. Now, coming into this year, everyone's expectations were raised because of that. So sitting 5-9 on this year so far, do you think it was maybe sitting 5-9 because of the added pressure from last year's, maybe the possible blueprint is out on them, or even it's possibly just reverted back to the means of, okay, this is maybe where they were supposed to be last year based on their rebuild with all the youth that they have on their team?
Well, I think when you come off of a championship, and this is for any team in any sport, really, there's always that pressure of, this is the standard we've set. Right. Last season we made it to the finals. This is the new standard, is making it to the finals and even going beyond that and bringing the NLL Cup home to Albany. So I do think that there was a little bit of added pressure, but our guys handle it well. They handle the pressure well, regardless of the situation, whether there is that high expectation or if we're coming into a tough game like we are this weekend against the defending champion Buffalo Bandits, still kind of gets me right here saying that. But, I think that, like I said, regardless of whatever team you are on, whatever league you're in, the NFL, the NBA, because there's always going to be that added pressure to live up to the expectation of last year. And I know a lot of us, myself included, were hoping we would be back this year. But, speaking for myself, I always know in the back of my mind that a new year, a new season is a completely new beginning. You have to move past what happened last year and you have to look towards this season and how you can capitalize on what you did this year, or what you did the previous year, I should say.
Right, yeah, especially when you beat expectations like last year and you have to come in with those expectations. It's always another hurdle you have to jump past. But the collection of offensive talent that Albany has right now, it's absolutely filthy. You got Alex Simmons, the Ty Kurtz, now the Dyson Williams, even Sam Firth has picked it up. Now you got Jonathan Peshko, you got Kyle Jackson, along with Ethan Walker, who's wearing the A, and he's the veteran leader up there. And I know Kyle Jackson's more veteran than him, but Ethan Walker's the veteran piece on that team. What makes this offense just work so well together with that amount of talent?
Well, you have the younger guys, Dyson Williams, former Duke Blue Devil. I mean, the dude is a stud, plain and simple. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. You look at guys like Dyson Williams, Ty Kurtz. I mean, Ty is number 1 and number 2 with Alex Simmons in basically every offensive category for our team. So those two, I like to call them chaos and mayhem because that's really what they are on the floor when they're on offense. I think everybody's picking up the slack. We've had a couple of injuries this season. We lost a couple of guys due to free agency and trades and so on in the offseason. We lost Leo Storos. He went on to coach, and he's doing a fantastic job. I actually had the opportunity to speak with him at the box championships in Utica. And, he told me he misses Albany, but, he loves coaching, and that's kind of where he wanted to be right now. So, I'm happy for him. Leo's a great guy, and we definitely miss him on the team, as well as the other pieces that we lost in the offseason, whether due to injury, whether due to free agency and trades. But when you look at the collection of talent we have now, the younger guys, like you said, the Dyson Williams, and, now we have Jonathan Peshko and Jackson, and those guys are scrappy as they're scrappy as hell. So that's really what this team could use going into the second half of the season or the rest of the season. You get two guys who aren't afraid to mix it up, roll up their sleeves, get some dirt under their fingernails. And, it's with any team when you have new faces coming in and you've lost some old faces, there's bound to be a bit of a transition, a feeling out, a getting used to period. I think from my point of view anyway, I think this team is coming out of that period and they're starting to mesh really well together. The offense really clicked the other night, in our game and, against Georgia. And Georgia's always a tough team. You've got Lyle and Jeremy Thompson, two of arguably the greatest players on the planet, But I think we handled them very well. And I think we saw a glimpse of the future of this team on Saturday with the way the offense clicked. And when you look at the other side of the ball on defense, again, there are some holes due to injury, and I think our guys on defense are picking up the slack, and they're starting to mesh really well.
So we talked about the offense a little bit here. The right side, I think, is set for years to come with the Simmons and the Kurtz. But with Peshko, we kind of hinted at him just a second ago. Mm-hmm. The talent is there. I mean, we already know what Simmons and Kurtz brings. So I want to talk a little bit more about the newest addition to the team in Jonathan Peshko. And what did you like after seeing him play in the first game?
The fact that he wasn't afraid to mix it up. That he wasn't afraid to be in the middle of where the action is. His aggressiveness really impressed me. I mean, I had seen him play. I had seen videos, his highlights and so on. Absolutely loved what I saw, and I had a chance to see it the other night against Georgia. Like I said a minute ago, he's scrappy. He loves getting his dirt under his fingernails. And I think that's what this team needs. He brings an extra spark. He brings an extra ounce of energy, if you will, to the team. And I think that's what these guys need. I really do. I think they need that little extra spark, and I think they got it with Peshko.
Yeah, I think with being paired with Simmons and Kurtz, you kind of got to find your way in there because a lot more times than not, you're not going to have the ball on your stick because it's going to be in Kurtz or Simmons' stick. So if you're not afraid to mix it up and set those hard picks and set those lanes for those guys, you're going to be set for years to come. But the last question I got for the forward group, for the lefties, Nathan Grennan kind of got traded to Ottawa in the offseason. Mm-hmm. You got Marshall Paulus, who's only appeared in 2 games, and Walker and Firth are kind of the two pieces that returned from last year. You added Kyle Jackson about 2 games ago from San Diego, and Dyson Williams, the stud generational talent, comes in as a rookie, being added to that side. How do you think that side of the floor has looked to you with a bit of a makeover from last year's finals team?
I don't want to degrade anybody from last year's team, but I think we have a strong left side coming into the rest of the season, and it's going to take a little bit of time for these guys to learn each other's nuances, to kind of get for lack of a better term, feel each other out and kind of see how each other plays. I know a lot of these guys, they've played together, whether it's in the box or on the field. They may have played against each other, so they have somewhat of an idea of what they're looking for with each other. But when you're together in a collective team for the length of time that they're going to be for the rest of the season, there's definitely that feeling out period. And I think that once these guys, not that they're not on the same page, but once they get set in where they want to go, I honestly think they could be unstoppable in the future.
Yeah, it's kind of just figuring out the ebbs and flows of the new offense. You kind of got 2 new guys there, so you got to kind of figure out, okay, if I do this, what's this guy going to do? Where in the past, you might have known what that other guy is going to do. But before we talk about the defense, you are the PA for this team.
I am.
What is your favorite part about this job? And then on the opposite side of it, what is something that you might dread about the job?
My favorite part of the job is everything about it. I'm in a very unique position, physically, metaphorically and physically. I see the game from a different viewpoint than everybody else. The fans, they can actually, we talked about this before the show. The fans, they sit in the stands and they can see everything happening on the floor. They can see the movements. They can see the picks. I sit in between the penalty boxes, so I'm floor level. And where I sit, at least for my, for me anyway, I can't speak for other public address announcers. I'm actually friends with the public address announcer for Las Vegas. Excellent guy. He sits up in, up in
the press boxes, yeah.
Press boxes, thank you. He sits up in the press boxes. He has a clearer view of everything that's happening. But me, I'm floor level. I'm kind of right in the middle of everything. A lot of it is, doing this and this, but it's always just a flat plane. But I love everything about the job. I love, the atmosphere, the fans, the music, being in the arena moments before the game starts, and there's that anticipation, of just wanting the game to get started, and then, trying to keep the crowd energy level going and interacting with the crowd, but aside from that, I love the fans. And it's not just, I love the Albany Firewolves fans, but I love the lacrosse fans, period, because they're just very passionate about the game, very passionate about the sport. Full disclosure, I never played a game of organized lacrosse in my life. I would play, a random pickup game here. I'd play wall ball if I ever had the chance. I'd play it in gym class, and I knew a lot about the history of the game, but I never played. I don't know the nuances of an offense. I don't know the nuances of a defense, but, I have a unique vantage point because I get to take part in a game that I've grown to love, both on the field and in the box. I apologize. I knocked my phone around.
You're all good.
In the box and on the field. I call games for you, Albany, here, so I get to see the field game as well. And it's a game that I've grown to love. I love the fans. I love the game itself. There's really, I don't think there's anything I dread about what I do. The downside, sure, it's time away from home, it eats up weekends, so seeing a lot of my family still lives out in Utica. I'm originally from Utica. So
Okay,
a lot of them still live out there, and it's tough to get out there and see them when you've got a game on Saturday and you have to prep Friday, and then Sunday you're kind of recovering from everything that went on the night before. So there's nothing I really dread, but the downside for me is that it takes up a lot of personal time, but I don't mind that so much. Sure, it takes time away from my family, and I mind that, but
Right.
I don't really dread anything. I love every aspect of what I do. I love interacting with the fans. I love the excitement, the energy, the electricity in the arena. Even we are sitting at, if we're sitting at 5-9 right now, you walk into the Wolves Den at the MVP Arena, it's still electricity from the opening whistle to the final whistle, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you guys just have the highest attendance you guys have ever had in the game against Georgia?
We did. 6,405, I think, was the final number.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You can kind of see the growth, and I think across all of NLL last weekend, you saw steady growth in all the arenas there. So
right.
That's what you're kind of hoping for as an outsider, as an NLL fan and a lacrosse fan, is you want this steady growth and this the more people in the arenas, the better, and it's a better atmosphere for all. But we'll talk about the defense now.
Sure.
It seems that they might have taken a step back, and maybe this is it's a running joke now. I have a duh question on all of these interviews, and this is probably it. How much do you think the injuries on the back end have hampered this team? Because Tchaikovsky has missed 2, Volkov's missed 3, Watkinson's missed 4, Nishimura has missed 8, and Wagner's only played in 3 of 11 games now.
Right. I think whenever you have an injury at any position, whether it's offense, defense, it's definitely going to hamper production. But our guys have stepped up. They've stepped up as best as they could. Excuse me. We had Colton. Colton's been back on the floor for a couple of weeks now. Scary knee injury a few weeks ago. Thankfully, it wasn't major. He was back on the floor a couple of weeks later, and he's doing Cat and Colton things. He's being Colton Watkinson, and that's what we love to see. But definitely, I do think the injuries have hampered us. But our guys, they've worked together, they've come together as a team, and they've done their best to figure them out. And I think, like I said earlier, going into the rest of the season, I think our defense is going to be top notch.
So it kind of goes towards the back end here. Is there a player that, in your opinion, kind of has taken over more of a leadership role on the defense, whether it be on the floor or off the floor, with those veteran pieces kind of missing time back there?
Well, you look at our captains. Look at Colton. He's been there. He's been the rock for this team. One of the rocks, I should say. He's been one of the rocks for this team. He's always been the guy on the floor that whenever the things are down, he's always in people's faces telling them, hey, this game's not over. We're still in this. We still got to fight. And that's what I love about Colton is that he's intense in play with his teammates, trying to get him back up to the level that he knows they can play at. And that's a captain's job. That's what he does, and he does it well. And I think Colton has definitely stepped up in the leadership role as a captain. And you look at other guys on the floor. Will Johansson is one of them. Will's his first year with the team this year, and he's been producing. He's been producing. I mean, the dude is causing chaos on the field wherever he goes. He's number one in the team in causing turnovers, number two in loose ball recoveries behind Joe Nardella. He's been one of the guys that has definitely stepped up this season, and I'm glad he's on this. I'm glad he's on this club. He's scrappy. He's young. I think he's going to be with us for a while, and I'm looking forward to see what he does in the future.
So that's a good transition, and because of the generational talent of a Dyson Williams, who just happens to play on the same team as Will Johansson, I mean, do you, in your opinion, and I know Dyson and Brendan O'Neill and Adam Patra are kind of getting all the attention right now, but shouldn't Will's name kind of be in the mix there for Rookie of the Year with all the stats he's putting up there? I mean, you look at the entire NLL, and you mentioned he's second in the league in loose balls. He's 10th in the entire NLL in loose balls.
Or I'm sorry, did I say league? I meant team. He's second in the
yes, no, you said team. Yeah, he's second
okay.
in the team, but he's 10th in the league and across all players in loose balls.
I definitely think he should be in the discussion, at least in the discussion. I don't make those choices. Those are for the folks that make a lot more money than I do. But I definitely think Will should be in at least in the discussion for Rookie of the Year. There's a wealth of talent across the league, and it's really tough. It's really tough to stand out in the National Lacrosse League. You have some of these big names, not just in the NLL, but, you look over in the field game as well. A lot of these guys, you look at a Trevor Baptiste out in San Diego. I mean, he's, arguably one of the faces of the league, both in the box and on the field. So you have that competition out there too. And it's really tough for a player, especially a young player, to stand out in the NLL. But I think Will has done that, and he's putting people on notice that he's here and he's here to stay.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. I just don't think his name, because, and it's no shot at Dyson Williams, because Dyson Williams is on the same team, Will's kind of stats and numbers might get overshadowed a bit because, they're on the same team. But Dougie, I don't think he's been the same type of player or had the same type of year that you might expect from him. You got 11.54 goals against and about a 79 save percentage, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. To me, it seems more like it's a defensive issue in front of him by all the changing pieces because of all the injuries. Now, do you think that's a fair thought, or did you happen to see something that maybe at the start of the season, maybe it was from playing at the Worlds, or maybe it was from a longer season last year that might have bit him, or do you really just think it could be just the interchangeable pieces in front of him due to all the injuries on the backside?
Well, I can't speak for Dougie, but I definitely think that the missing pieces on defense and, a lot of our defensive guys still may be trying to, like I said, get in the flow of things. I think that definitely plays a role. But, I can't speak for Dougie as far as maybe what happened last season or at the Worlds. I mean, I actually got to watch him play at the Worlds, and he was Doug Jamieson.
Oh, yeah.
He was Dougie doing Dougie things at the the Worlds in Utica. But I definitely think that, the missing parts that we had on defense, whether it be through injury, free agency, I definitely think those contributed. And earlier in the season, we had those 2 quick overtime losses. I'm a former athlete myself, and I understand, they can hurt. They can hurt, and they can kind of play with your psyche a little bit. But, again, I can't speak for Dougie, what's going on upstairs, or, maybe I don't know. But I definitely think that maybe, some of the holes that we've had in defense maybe have played a role in that. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was for the Bandits last year, starting the season, where it seemed like, hey, maybe Matt Vince isn't the same Matt Vince, but then as you take a deeper look, it's because of all the interchangeable pieces that are going in front of him, because of all the injuries, that, hey, if he wants to see this shot, the players on the field might not be in that position that he's normally used to. And then once all those pieces came back, it was Matt Vince being Matt Vince. So I'm fully confident once all the pieces are back, you're going to get Dougie being Dougie once again. And you're already seeing flashes of it later in the season when they're going on this run here.
Well, my humble opinion, again, this is my humble opinion, Dougie is one of the best in the league. I mean, yep. If you're an opposing team and you're coming to Albany, you're going to be playing against Doug Jamieson, and it's going to be tough because, I like to call him our Hulkbuster. He's the brick wall of Pearl Street, in my opinion. Dougie is a great guy to begin with. I don't think I've ever seen him without a smile on my face, whether pregame, postgame. Dougie is an amazing guy, and he's one of the best in the league. And like I said, regardless of where we sit in the standings, to me, as far as Dougie's concerned, that's irrelevant. You know that you're playing against Doug Jamieson when you come into Albany, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, and he's got a bobblehead coming out pretty soon.
He does. I personally am thrilled about that. I want one for my desk at work.
Oh, yeah. You can never go wrong with a bobblehead.
No.
But with your job working the mic, you already kind of hinted at it a bit. You get an experience that not very many other people get in between the boxes there and at field level. So tell us how big of a role someone in your position can kind of play in keeping the crowd involved, or getting them hyped at the right times, or just getting them hyped at the right times for the players on the field that could affect their psyche.
It's vital. I mean, that is a key part of doing what I do. It's not just announcing who scored a goal. It's not just announcing who the penalty is on. It's being able to sit in the arena and feel the vibe of the crowd. There are tough times, and not just in the National Lacrosse League. I announce basketball, college football. I also announce mixed martial arts and boxing. As a matter of fact, I will be at the Seneca Niagara Casino on April 18th for All-Star Boxing. Folks in Western New York, come on out. You'll know the announcer, and it's going to be a great night of boxing. All-Star Boxing. Get online, get tickets. Shameless plug. So,
plug away.
From my vantage point as an announcer, I see all aspects of the game. I get to see what goes on the field. I get to hear the chatter from the referees as they're doing a review, or they're just chatter to begin with. I've got fans behind me. The whole collective experience is great. But getting back to, feeling out the crowd. There are times when it's really tough, but you have to keep the crowd engaged. You have to let them know, we may be down, but we're not out. We still need you guys. You're part of this team too. And the one thing I love when the Bandits come to town is y'all travel very well. Very well. We have a good smattering of black and orange among the, maroon and gold of the Albany Firewolves. And I love Bandit fans. I talk to Bandit fans every time they come to town. The last time I was out in Buffalo for boxing, oddly enough, not the last time, but the time before that was right before the finals. So, of course, I had my Firewolf sweatshirt on. And I met quite a few Buffalo Bandit fans, and they're awesome. The Buffalo Bandit fans are awesome. And I got to be honest with you, I admire seeing the fan support out in Buffalo. It's fantastic. And, from my point of view, just being an announcer and being a part of the team and being as established as I am with the fans, I love it. It makes my heart happy, so to speak. But controlling the energy of the crowd is vitally important. You have to be able to know the right times to pump the fans up, the right time to stay quiet, but, also the right time to maybe give it to the opposing fans a little bit, have a little bit of fun. And that's one thing Buffalo fans have told me is, they love how I kind of banter back and forth with them, but, they understand it's all in good fun, and it really is.
Yeah, I mean, doing that type of job is really just a work of art. Being able to kind of feel without it being able to, because you can't really turn around and talk to some guy and go, "Hey, what do you want to hear?" It's more like, what is the feel of the arena, and it's something not very many people can do. But we'll look towards Albany. Right now they've won 3 of the last 4.
Mm-hmm.
They're currently 2 spots out of a playoff game or playoff spot right now, but they hold a tiebreaker over Philly, who they can easily jump, and they also got a game versus Vancouver, who's ahead of them in the lineup as well. Now, 2 teams in front of the standings with 4 of their first 6 games this year, they've lost by a combined 5 goals. So they're right in everything. They're sitting 5-9. How dangerous of a team can this be in the final stretch of games?
Very, very. And I say that because I think they've hit a stride. They've hit a stride. The new pieces that have come in, I feel like they're starting to really melt together. They're starting to going in the same direction together, and I think this team is going to be very dangerous coming into the rest of the season. And again, I'm a little biased, but I definitely think that this team has a very legitimate shot of making a run at the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw Rochester last year in that final week of games. I think there was like 124 possibilities, and only 3 of them went the way of Rochester to get in the playoffs, and it went perfectly for them. So you can't count them out until you can count them out. And, there's still a legit possibility they can get to 9-9, and 9-9 might get you into the 7 or 8 spots. So Buffalo versus Albany, second time this season. It's actually going to be their 11th meeting in the last 4 seasons, if you can believe it, including playoffs. Buffalo leads the series 7-3, but in the regular season, it's 4-3. And of Buffalo's 17 losses in the last 4 years, Albany is responsible for nearly 18% of them. So what have you kind of seen from either the sidelines or watching them on TV that just makes the Firewolves such a tough out for the Buffalo Bandits?
Because we understand how important every game is as a team, as a collective, whether we're playing Buffalo, Philadelphia, San Diego, Vancouver, Las Vegas, whomever. We go out there with the intent to win a lacrosse game. And when the Bandits come into town, we understand that, Bandit fans are coming too, and it's going to be loud, it's going to be raucous, it's going to be rowdy. And the guys put a little extra forward because they understand it's going to be a tough game. But not only that, but they show out for Buffalo because they understand that right now in the National Lacrosse League, Buffalo is the standard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the heck Alex Simmons says through his mask, but he gets under the skin of a bunch of Bandits players. I would love to be a fly on the field in that time. It's just, I don't know what it is all last year. It's something happened between those 2 teams that just shakes Buffalo, and we come on the podcast on the following Monday and just go, guys, like, what could they possibly be saying that's making you commit all these penalties and go to the penalty box? But they've already played each other once. February 1st of this year, Buffalo won 16-10. Jameson kind of got chased early, and then Andrew Kidd came in, and I thought he played really, really well in that game. But Albany, was without their captain. They didn't have Watkinson in that one. They didn't have Jackson and Peshko, who were added most recently. But how different of a team are we going to expect to see on Saturday than the one that came to Buffalo about a month and a half ago?
Well, I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. That's more of a coachy kind of question. But I think you're going to see a team that's coming in hungry. They're on a 2-game win streak, and they want more. Now what was the old saying from Major League? You win more than 2, that's considered a winning streak.
Right.
But I think, the guys are going to play a little extra harder because they understand that Buffalo is not a team to be toyed with. But then again, no team is really a team to be toyed with. But now we're starting to see, I think, that rivalry really start to come out. The Battle of I-90, we're calling it. And I think that is definitely going to be something in this rivalry, I think, is going to be one we're going to enjoy for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think it was last year I was saying that Albany gives me a lot of like Buffalo vibes before they finally broke through. The depth on offense, you got a stud in net, and the defense. And, sometimes playing a team like this that is got their backs against the wall right now, and every game is like a playoff type of game, those are some of the most dangerous teams you can run into. But, is there an area from your position on the field as the PA that you believe Albany might be able to get some type of advantage versus Buffalo to pull off that victory and move that one step closer to a playoff spot?
I honestly think that if we go out there and we play our game, we do what we do best, and that's we play scrappy. We love getting in the middle of things. A lot of our guys are very, very physical. Even a guy like Alex Simmons, I hate to use the term small in stature because I'm not that big either.
Me neither.
But, Alex plays like he's 10 feet tall. And he talks like he's 10 feet tall, too. But I think you're going to see these guys. They're coming into the rest of the season. They understand what the task at hand is. They know what the mission is, and they're going out to accomplish that mission. And I think you're going to see a group of guys this Saturday who are going to be out for, I don't want to use the term out for blood because that's kind of a bit much, but they're going to be out to show the world that regardless of the record, we're still one of the toughest teams in the league to play.
Final two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna ask you a score prediction because we do that on the show. It's near impossible to score.
If you ask me a score prediction, it's going to be 150-0 Albany. But
there you go. Little biased. But
little.
What type of game do you think we're expected to see on Saturday? Are you thinking like a close battle? Or are you thinking maybe it's like a 17-16 type of game? Maybe a more low-scoring game, defensive battle, goaltender showing off? What type of game do you expect to call on Saturday?
I expect to call a very physical game. I can't predict scores. I'm not good at predicting things.
Me neither.
But I think you're going to see a very physical game because Buffalo's a physical team to begin with. But not only that, Albany, we are now in the hunt for the playoffs. And like I said, we know what the mission is and we know what we need to do to get there. And it's almost the mindset of, okay, we know where we need to go. Right now, Buffalo is in our way. And there's only two ways to get on the other side of it. Either you figure out what you got to do to kind of go around it, or you just barrel through it. I think our guys are going to come out tough. They're going to come out fast. I think it's going to be a very good game, very physical. I would love to see a close game, a nail biter. But I honestly, as far as score wise, I don't know. But I know, you're going to come out and you're going to see a great game on Saturday.
Perfect. Final one for you. I've been asking kind of an out of left field type of question to end all these interviews recently, so I'm going to keep it going. What TV show would you want to be on if it kind of became your world and you were more of a main character in it? Are you thinking a Game of Thrones? Are you thinking more, relaxed in Seinfeld? Are you going more Survivor? Like, what type of TV would you want to be on?
Oh, boy. I've been watching a whole lot of Only Murders in the Building. Love that show. I would love to be on that show. Only because I'm a comedy guy. I love good comedy. I love ridiculous comedy, and there's plenty of that in that show. I would love to be on that show. If I had to choose another one, I would have to say WWE Raw. Pro wrestling fan since 8 years old, proud of it. No, like a TV show, I'd have to say probably Only Murders in the Building.
Well, I'm going to take one more stab at this one.
Sure.
What were your thoughts on John Cena turning heel?
I've been having discussions with some of my friends, and I do some ring announcing in professional wrestling, so I talk to a lot of wrestlers, a lot of folks that work in the back, and we have a different perspective than the quote-unquote everyday fan. So when I watch, if I watch a Raw, I kind of look and see how whatever somebody is doing is going to affect the storyline going forward, instead of just saying, oh, wow, he suplexed him off the top rope, Right. I thought John Cena's heel turn was sheer brilliance. I did. I didn't see it coming. The rest of the world didn't see it coming. And the whole world has been on fire ever since it happened. There's been the argument, well, how does this, compare to Hogan and the NWO? And my personal opinion, I think it was bigger than Hogan and the NWO. I honestly do. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. WrestleMania is right around the corner, so we'll see where it goes.
I had to sneak that last one in since you brought it up.
That's
Mike,
all right.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us
Absolutely.
on the Buffalo Sports Collective. Do you want to let everyone know where they can either find you, or if you have anything else you want to plug in for the listeners here?
Sure. You can find me on social media at Mike A. Falvo. That's pretty much the same thing across across the board. You can find me Facebook, Instagram, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm on TikTok too. You can find me there. What else do I have going on? Well, this Saturday I will be at the MVP Arena, obviously, for the Buffalo Bandits and Albany Firewolves. I announced for men's lacrosse at UAlbany, so I got that going this year. I announced for the New York Phoenix in Schenectady of the Basketball League. We have 2 home games coming up the end of March, 28th and 29th. Right now, currently undefeated, so I'm plugging them. I mentioned it earlier before. All-Star Boxing at the Seneca Niagara Casino, April 18th. It's a Friday night. It'll be live on ESPN Knockout. Tuto Zabella Jr., his son Felix, they run an amazing promotion, a great night of fights. The hometown girl, Micaiah Krebs, is fighting from Niagara Falls. If you get a chance, go out and catch her fight. She is a badass. Can I say that on the podcast? Okay. She's a badass in the ring. I've had the pleasure of calling 2 of her last 2 fights at the casino. And I love watching her fight every time she gets in the ring. She's a beast, and, she gets the job done. I also announced for Cage Wars MMA here in the Capital Region. If you're ever in the area in Schenectady, you can find them. They fight at the Armory Studios, New York, which is in Schenectady. You can find them at CageWarsMMA.com. You can find upcoming fights, fighter profiles, and so on. But sure, find me online at Mike A. Falvo across the board.
Perfect.
There you have it.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on the BSC. Hope to talk to you down the road, and continued success with everything you're doing.
I have one more plug if I can.
Go for it.
March 29th, I will be at Immortal Championship Wrestling. They're here in the Capital Region. If you're looking for some great independent wrestling, make the drive on out. It's going to be a great night of wrestling. Plus, you'll know the announcer.
Show Mike some support out there. Go follow him wherever and join anything that he is calling. We will be back Friday with our normal episode to preview Bandits versus Firewolves. We'll talk to you all then.
Thank you.